I'll just do a quick introduction for the guys, the new participants on here. Brian Billings is the head coach at Pacific University. He's been running workshops over the last 7 or 8 weeks or so. We've added a couple guys to the panel over the last 5 or 6 weeks with Phil Van Horn, who's former agent, former college coach, been in the pro game and the college game for a long time, and helps us here with CBA in Los Angeles locally. Tim Bloom has been a long-time high school coach and been working with CBA over the last couple of years. Tyler Freeman, just Tyler Freeman. Just make sure you buy his cards early on eBay, and you might be able to flip them in a couple of years and make a little bit. We do have guests from all over the country. We have players from all over the country, from coast to coast, that will be coming in and out. I'm not sure if David Espinoza is going to make it in, but if he does and he shows his face on here, he's the current international cross-checker with the Cincinnati Reds, played about 15, 16 years professionally, was a first-rounder in 99 with Cincinnati. One of the best hitters I've been around, and I've been able to be around quite a few, pretty good professional players. And he's one of the guys I really enjoyed going to the field with and being able to kind of pick his brain on a daily basis for 3 or 4 years. Bruce Billings, who was on last week. I don't know, again, another guy, I'm not sure if he's going to make it on, but if he comes on, I don't want to keep introducing. Bruce Billings, no relations to Brian Billings, which I think Brian actually thought you might have thought you were related to him at some point. But Bruce is a lower level pitching coordinator with the Phillies. So if he gets on here, he probably won't say anything because he was pretty silent last week, but he likes to listen in, and then we talk a little bit throughout the week about stuff. But there it is. I don't know. This week's workshop is about two-strike hitting, two-strike approach, how that impacts your approach in earlier counts. And it really is an anchor for you to gain confidence if you can really fine-tune that two-strike approach and that two-strike hitting. So I'm still getting people in here right now, Bill, so I don't know if we want to screen share right away, but maybe wait about 5 minutes as stragglers start coming in, and I'll keep allowing people in before we get into video. You good with that?
Yeah.
Well, Joe, while we're waiting, let's hear, what philosophy were you raised under as a two-strike hitter when you were in high school and college? What did you hear about two-strike hitting?
You know what? When I was that young, I didn't really have a two-strike approach. It was just wake and rake. So if there was any kind of approach, it was just expand the zone, be more aggressive in two-strike counts. Generally, I was early in the count hitter, so I rarely and my bat to ball ability was above average, so I would put the ball in play early. I rarely struck out in that from that regard, because I put the ball in play earlier in counts. But as I got older, and maybe by my junior year of college, and then getting in the pro ball, two-strike hitting became very important. Just having confidence with two strikes and knowing that you're just as you can cause just as much damage with two strikes. What that does is it makes you more selective earlier in the counts. It teaches you to not be a free swinger, which I was a bit of a free swinger during my high school years, my college years. I was around Tony Gwynn quite a bit my junior year of college, as you know, and two-strike hitting was something that he really instilled in me. And really helped me to understand why it's so important, and how it can be a tool, just another tool in your belt that is really going to help you create impact offensively. But not only that, because I was a leadoff type of guy, right? My goal every time I went to the plate, especially when I was leading off the game, was to try to get to a 3-2 count. So really putting myself in a position where I may fail, as far as not being able to put the ball in play. There's a good chance I'm striking out, especially that first at-bat of the game. But what it does, it prepares me for my second and third at-bats, and it prepares the guys behind me to get a really good look at what the pitcher's trying to do to me, and what he has in his arsenal. So if he's able to get the breaking ball over for a strike, A lot of times, if a pitcher has a really hard time getting a breaking ball over for a strike in the game, pitchers that are on here, hitters that, if you're not looking at it from a pitcher's perspective, start looking at it from that perspective. If they can't get it over, they don't want to throw it. So if there's not a whole lot of confidence in secondary or third pitches, a lot of times the only thing they can refer back to or turn back to is that fastball. A lot of times the fastball away, because if they have a hard time commanding a secondary and third pitch, they're more than likely probably not able to command the inside part of the strike zone as well. So you can really get a good guess as to what's coming based on, what pitchers are trying to do to the hitters in front of you.
All right, well, let's take that. Now, Tyler, you got drafted early because you had a lot of success as a two-strike, or one of the reasons. You were a good two-strike hitter in high school. But in pro ball, they don't mind when guys strike out. So what do you hear from the Indians about two-strike approach, if anything at all? Or what do you hear from some of the other players who've advanced to the big leagues about two-strike approach?
Right. And I think the game trending nowadays, you're absolutely right. And people are kind of caring less for strikeouts. But kind of what, Joe has taught me also as a coach is like when you're in the two-strike count, I mean, it's battle mode. Like you're in a battle with the pitcher. My approach for that is to not strike out. I'm going to keep that for as long as I go throughout my whole career.
Good.
I don't want to strike out. If I strike out, I feel like I fail. I truly do. And
Good.
so going forward, I'm going to stick with that. They may say, hey, we might want you to, hit the ball for power with two strikes, keep your same approach. I change it. I do. I zone in on more like right field, middle right field with two strikes. I take away the pull side because it allows me to stay on off-speed pitches better. And, I've stuck with that my whole career, and I'm definitely not going to change that. So
that's good stuff. We'll come back to that later on. I was just buying time, Joe, while you let people.
Yeah, good. So, right, we do have another Billings. Sorry, keep buying time. No, so
But oh, well, I tell you what's interesting is in college baseball, Cal State Fullerton had a philosophy program-wide over a long period of time with 3 or 4 different coaches, and they called that two-strike battle station. They practice a wide variety of two-strike battles off of machines, in cages, in games. They made it a thing not to strike out or just put the ball in play. And that's a lost art in pro baseball. When you get on the 40-man, your AA, AAA, it's do damage. You get to the big leagues, do damage. You strike out, do damage. That's the thing. And that makes sense. It's what you get paid for now. And that's what analytics have proven to us, that doing damage makes sense. And a strikeout is just equal to an out. But at the lower levels, different game. And being able to put the ball in play and cutting down on strikeouts, that is a big deal coming up through the game and in development. And I always had such enormous respect for the guys at Fullerton because how personally they took striking out and how much they prepared and how much time they invested in making that personal, how much they did it in their practice time, and the different ways that players bought into it. It made sense. It won games. There's all those little, people say, oh, there are a lot of little things. But what you really learn, and this goes back to Ken Reviz's book, Baseball 2.0 or Heads Up Baseball, is there are no little things. They're just details, and there are details to playing and learning baseball. And one of them is two-strike hitting is a lost art. Battling up there and putting the ball in play with
the low movement matrix.
That away, Coach Billings. Good to hear from you. You can take yourself off mute and say that again. Let's hear what you got.
Heard something about Matrix, the new Matrix movie, I think, is what I heard.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Sorry about that. I'm multitasking right now, just finishing up this Soto certification that kind of been forced to do. But I'm gonna finish that up and then listen in on what you guys are talking about right after.
When does the Bruce Billings certification come into play? Do we get to participate in that?
Oh man, I can't wait. I cannot wait to put something together. But I'll let you in. I'll let you in later.
Bruce, we're going to have you do next week. You're going to do a tutorial on Rap Soto, and we expect Seth Daniels, their president of baseball operations, to be on this call with you. So we're looking forward to that.
Oh, sounds like a blast.
Hey,
sounds like a blast motion.
Phil, do you know who Bruce is? Bruce?
Oh yeah.
That's Eric's brother.
It is. I know. It's the good brother. We got the brother that was a nice guy, but was not as good as the bigger brother.
He had pretty eyes, but didn't have any arm speed.
He was throwing too much tension in his shoulder, but we can talk about that later. You guys go and keep doing your thing.
All right.
All right. So I think that's pretty much it. I mean, there might be some stragglers that come in, and if we see them, we see them. Mario is supposed to get back on today, Phil, as well. He just texted me a little bit ago, said he was going to get on, but who knows. Brian, what do you got?
I think for me, two-strike hitting comes down to, I want to build swings that can hit in any count. I don't want to build swings that are, count specific, that are just going to be successful in hitters counts and are going to not be as successful in two-strike counts. So, I don't think really two-strike adjustments are going to be that considerable for me. Maybe plate coverage. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. The plate is 17 inches wide. And when you add the diameter of the baseball on each side, it's really about 23 inches wide. And that's with a good umpire, that's just calling the corner. So we have to be able to expand the plate, especially on the outside part of the plate. And I think, so for me, if there's any physical adjustment that takes place, it's maybe just getting a little closer to the plate to cover that outside corner. But outside of that, I want to build swings that are successful in all counts, and so I try not to make too big of a deal about two-strike hitting, because I think if you make too big of a deal about it, hitters get defensive and they lose that sort of yes, no mentality. They get a little bit wait and see if it's my pitch and then get myself going, and it leads to late hitters that are late. And so for me, it's not too much different than other counts. I want to create swings that are really adjustable. So, and I think with that, it comes down to training economy and working on those counts. You talk about Cal State Fullerton coach, I guarantee you they work on it, a lot. They work on it 25, 30, 40% of the time, and that's probably why they're good at it, and one thing I've learned is that in a game, 25 to 32% of the time, the pitch that's thrown is going to be with a two-strike count. Okay, so that means as a hitter, we've got to be comfortable hitting with two strikes. So we've got to practice that in practice as much as possible, and that's kind of a hard environment to create in practice, because we've got to create an environment where the hitter doesn't know what's coming, and he's seeing different shapes and different spins and different velocities, and he's got to protect 23 inches. So we've got to be able to create that environment in practice and do it enough to where our hitters are comfortable carrying that into a game. So, and then I also think that there are good strikeouts and bad strikeouts. I think I'd rather have a kid who, strikes out on 8 pitches than a guy who swings, strikes out on 3 pitches looking, for example. So, I think there's good and bad strikeouts. If a hitter goes up there really tentative and takes a fastball right down the middle, gets himself into a bad count, and then chases a breaking ball in the dirt, and now he's got that breaking ball in his head, and then, strike 3 by you, 3-pitch strikeout, he sits down. That's a bad strikeout. But, an 8, 9 pitch, 12 pitch at bat where the guy ends up with a strikeout, not so bad. So I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on two-strike hitting. I did have one thing I wanted to talk about in terms of mobility, but we could talk about that in a little bit. So.
Okay. Let's just kind of pause there for a little bit because we did take a poll last week with what hitters or players and participants and parents wanted to hear more of throughout these workshops, and right at the top was mental skills. And I don't know. Somebody pinched me. I must be dreaming because we have Mario Soto 2 weeks in a row.
I bribed them.
You took the survey you took the survey 100 times.
Don't cash the check. It's going to bounce.
He clicks his own button over and over and over. No, but I wanted to, for the participants on here that don't know Mario, he's worked with us over the past year, our players and in our program, but also, you name it, professional athletes, college programs, Mississippi State when they were in Omaha over the last several years, Pepperdine baseball. He's been involved, in professional sports, but not just in sports, but also, with law enforcement and first responders, which has been pretty much what you've dove into over the last 3 months, probably 100% of your time, right?
4 hours today.
Well, that's it.
Yeah. So, wow, that's really kind. Thank you, Joe. And thank you, parents and athletes who are participating in this. So I want to draw upon 2 conversations I had early this morning. 2 different players, 2 different programs. In fact, coming from 2 different programs who are in this tweener where they've both been drafted, 2 different organizations. And like our players, they're all kind of struggling to try and find what it is that they should be doing to get themselves prepared. Because, like everyone, their world kind of came to a stop. They're being told and they're expected, since they're being paid to play, to stay in shape, but they don't have a whole lot of contact with people. So they're very much like our athletes right now. They're kind of going through this world of uncertainty, if that makes sense. And so, what can we do as coaches, as players, and I'm going to put the parents over to the side, because we should be the ones who are facilitating the motion to be able to come in and do something and feel good about what it is that we're doing. I don't think we want parents to be pushing the kids any more than they should be, because the reality is this has got to be their journey. And if we're talking about an age group between 13 and 14, this is the time when they should be kind of figuring out how badly they want this. Because this is the time where we're going to start separating how we feel about them and paying more attention to the player. Players need to start understanding the power of separating themselves and deciding how badly they want this. So I want to encourage every player to hear me clearly, because one of the conversations I had with one of the players who, again, they are both playing pro ball, is you need to quit worrying about what other people are doing, and you got to immerse and focus more on what you are doing. That's what you have control of. That empowers you, especially in this world of uncertainty, in this time of uncertainty. We've got still COVID. I just found out 2 very dear friends of ours are both towards the end of dealing with this COVID issue. It put them both on their butt for the better part of 7 to 10 days. And, we keep hearing all this mixed messages. And listen, the reality is it's not going away. We're going to have to learn how to deal with it and manage it. A quote unquote, here's adversity. So baseball's not any different. Baseball's teaching us how are you going to make adjustments when adversity comes to you? Because if you don't learn how to make adjustments to life, you're not going to do real well in this game of baseball. It's a wonderful reminder. So how do we make the adjustment to be able to be a better player, to get the rust off, because we haven't had a chance to play? Hopefully they had a great experience last weekend, and the players are all feeling, hey, yeah, at least I got a chance to get a sweat going, got a chance to play, get some innings in, get to throw, play some catch, get dirty. That's one of the things I'm hoping that the kids are taking away, and that the parents, now I'll bring it into the conversation, will continue to embrace and accept. Okay, there's not a straight path to success. Most of the time, the most meaningful path is the one that has stops and turns and twists and detours. You know, and the best example of that is probably Longoria that keeps coming to mind. Evan Longoria, who did not go straight to the pros. A lot of kids are transferring now. Do I go JC, coach? Should I stay here? Hey, I don't know that there's a perfect answer, but I know there is one answer that you should take, and that's to commit to whatever the decision is you're making. So here we are. We're talking about two players who, what do I do? One is a perfectionist. The other one has a lot of life coming in and throwing some serious curveballs at him. The one advice I give to the first player, take ownership of what you're doing. As long as you can allow your body to heal, you're putting in a good day's work, then that's enough for you. Because he's had a history of injuries 5 years straight. So coaches have never seen the best of him. And we probably have players who are wired that way. I'm going to go so hard, that next thing you know, they break down. And then the coach's perception of that person is, can this kid ever get healthy? So guys, if you're that player, parents, if that's your kid, probably the best thing you can do was to have taken advantage of this time off and let the body heal. And if you're not that kid, you need to be able to know that every day you need to judge yourself on how hard you worked. Was it better than what I did the day before? If you do that, you're going to be good. You're in a good place. But if you're constantly looking over the shoulder, or mom and dad, if you're constantly comparing your son to little Joey over here or little Tommy over there, they're never going to feel good and comfortable in their own skin. And they're the ones who have to step into the box. They're the ones who have to step into the diamond, the field in between the chalk, and step onto that dirt and bring their confidence, not your confidence, their confidence. The best way to build that up is to do that, is to build it up.
There's still stuff on the counter. Nothing needs
Was
counter.
that an amen?
Amen.
So that I think is probably as important as a message as I want to share. I'll leave you with this though, with the other player, with all the drama that was coming on, I tried to simplify the game for him. I tried to remind him that, listen, there's a couple things you have control of. One of them is the quality of your routine, or the fact that you at least just start having a routine. And a routine can be how you prepare yourself for practice, how you get yourself ready. At this age, it could be making sure that before they walk out of the house and get in the car, the kids got their gear and they're responsible for having packed all their things, not mom and dad getting it for them. So these little things, these small progressions, end up having a big impact at the end of this journey. And so, I remind parents, your kid's not going to get scouted on one weekend or one game or one practice or one moment. It's a body of work. So let's build on the body of work. And coaches, let's remind them, hey, the person who needs to judge you the most is you. Not me, not mom, dad, not scouts. It's you. And if you could start understanding the power of that, you're going to have nothing but success, regardless of what you do, regardless of the uniform you wear.
All right.
Okay, I'm done.
No, that was perfect. Little nuggets.
That's all. Listen, that's all this is.
Yeah.
That's all this is. That's all of us coaches who are on this talk, on this conversation, that's all we're capable of doing, is trying giving people nuggets to the degree that they're able to embrace it and accept them.
And just to kind of echo about just, getting your stuff packed yourself, getting your gear packed. as you know, this last weekend was our first weekend back with our younger guys playing some games in Arizona, and it's like we forgot all protocol. Forgot everything we already know about how we show up to the field, how we dress. Forget the stuff we failed to do on the field. Forget all that stuff that we, forgetting to touch the baseball with the bat. But just knowing that at 13, 14 years old, we're now old enough now to be able to do a lot of stuff on our own without having to rely on our parents to really, nurture us mid-game. So
yeah, but we want to empower people. Mm-hmm. And listen, at 13, 14, we were probably still very dependent, and obviously we are to our parents. We can't drive ourselves that age, but there are little things that we can be doing, and there are little things that over time will help build up who we want them to be, and we call it responsibility. So the more responsibility we add and we start charging these players with, I think it's only going to turn into something that can only help them both on the field and off. And I think to a degree, we as parents, and I've written about this, we start doing maybe too much for them. And I think that's where there's a disconnect. That's where I really believe that we need to be able to remind moms and dads, hey, let them play. Once they're here, this is their business. This is their world for the next hour and a half, 2 hours. Let them learn. Let them fail. Let them learn how to fail and recover from it. And then as they do, they're going to start taking more pride, more ownership of what they do. And then how can the parents help in facilitating that? Give them more tasks to do at home. Give them more responsibilities, because now we're parenting and coaching in a way that complements the growth of the player and the growth of the individual. That's a healthy thing. It becomes toxic when our love is directly proportionate to how well they do. Our ability to coach them and how we speak to them is directly proportionate to their success. That's where we need to put ourselves in check. All right, I'm getting something going on here.
He's getting pinged all over the place.
I'm like, what did I do? I started on.
Mario, do you need to leave us? Do you need to? Last week you had to rush off. You're here?
I'm good.
All right. Now, moms and dads and players, if you go to the Zoom webinar chat function and you open it up, you'll see Mario's contact information. Joe and I not only been around Mario in business, we're friends. We're sharing his email address.
Well, thank you.
His website, some of his background. We encourage you to follow him on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. And he has a podcast. I think it's weekly. Is that right, Mario? Or every other week?
It's like I try and do it every other week. Yes. Yeah. I think we're up to number 17.
Players,
I've got another 5
you
kind of
should
waiting.
go take a look at. He has a podcast with a first-round pick, a pitcher from Mississippi State. You should listen to that. Moms and dads, you should go see. He has one where he talks about being a good sports parent, and he talks also to other forms of performance that would be a benefit for you as you sit in traffic or as you eat up some time. We recommend that not just because he's a friend and he's good at his job, but because of how effective this can be in building this portfolio or this catalog of information that benefits you, but ultimately benefits your ball player and is part of the benefit of being with this CBA organization.
Well, I mean, you touched upon something big time there, and that is that parents just don't want their kids to fail. And so it's a thing that I've seen in the years that I've coached high school baseball, that they just have a really hard time letting little Johnny fail. And it's all part of life. And so we try to tell them it's okay to fail. You know, it's how we pick ourselves up and deal with that failure that makes the difference. And you know, but the parents just have such a hard time with it. If they could just just sit back and let their son be coached and let them fail and let them figure out how they're going to rise up from that failure. I think is such a key thing. Because I think that we all as parents, we want to parent our children better than we were parented. I think that's a very normal thing and a very common thing. However, when it comes to high school, like the biggest thing, and I was on a Zoom call with some 7th and 8th graders the other day talking to them about this, is that when you come into high school, doesn't matter how many times you were an all-star, doesn't matter what travel ball team you played for, doesn't matter. Any of those things don't matter. When you come, it's a completely clean slate. But this is the first time that you may have 40 or 50 kids going out for a team that has 15 spots. And so what's going to separate you from those other guys? And that's what you have to realize and be honest with yourself. That's the thing.
From a slightly different perspective, since we do have college guys on here, some guys aren't able to say anything, but they're able to be here and watch and learn and listen. And we do have guys based on, depending on the division of play they compete in, are able to say as much as they want. So, Brian, from a recruiting standpoint, how do you feel about what we're talking about here when we're dealing with, I don't want to call them helicopter parents, but parents that are very involved at the field when you're dealing with, possible recruits?
Yeah, maybe I think I'm lucky being a college coach. We don't have to deal with it as much. But I do have a 9-year-old son who's kind of going through that. And you see those kind of parents all the time who sort of live vicariously through their son or daughter's at-bats or pitching appearances. So I think it's, whether they do well or do poorly, you just got to be there to support them and love them and give them as much love as you can. And to me, it comes down to keeping them playing the game. So many kids quit baseball these days because it's so slow and it's so riddled with failure. So I think as parents, we play a huge role in keeping them positive and enjoying the experience. So.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that another way, Joe. When I was at SC, we had one of the worst, absolute, all-time worst parents. And we had an All-America, first-team All-America high school player leave us after his freshman year. He was good. We didn't want him anymore because his dad was in the stands and was the worst. He went to another program, played in the College World Series, and that coach just said, he's going to DH, Dad don't show up. I'm not playing him in the field. And so we've seen the worst. But Mario, I'm going to ask you, what are a couple of things that coaches notice about players who do the right thing because mom and dad aren't pains in the butt? What shows up for players that we want to promote? What are the good traits players can do that show some maturity early on where mom and dad don't have to be a total zoo for the coaches?
Really good answer for that, Phil. I don't want to just, I don't want to speak just to speak, because that's a great question. Let me see if I can answer it in this fashion.
Well, I'll help you out because I'm really big on this with middle school and high school guys, and coaches help me out. You see a ball player carry his stuff from the car to the field instead of mom or a brother or a sister or a dad carrying their bag?
Yes.
Big difference.
Yes.
You see them talk with respect to their mother and father politely, making eye contact, being a good listener, not being loud and just yakking. What do you think, Coach? You're thinking, wait a minute, I've got it. Wow.
Yeah.
This is different.
Yes.
Mom and dad never carry your bag again. And
Yes.
I've had a parent who say, I'm from a culture where we honor our son. I said, good. In the parking lot, you honor him, and at all the times out here he carries the bag. That dad quit right there in front of my face, in front of parents. That's the only time that's happened in 25 years. The rest of the time, mom and dad said, I'm so glad someone finally told my son to carry his own bag. And then I looked at the player and I said, I won't ever hear that again. From your mother or father, you carry your own bag. And when you get home, do something for your mother or father that would reflect well on you, that a coach would look at and say, here's a guy who's paying attention.
So you made me think of a time when I was interviewing and speaking to a young man who might be one of the best college hitters ever to play the game. And we talked about when he was a young man, how he learned to hone this skill, this craft. And he never talked about stats or average. It was always on trying to see the ball well, trying to really get good connection and a good sound from the bat off the ball. It's all these little things that we may probably take for granted, but that were different. But it was never about his statistic. It was always about him working on sharpening his skill set. And to your point, always respectful. And that's part of the reason why I was alluding to earlier about it's okay for kids to start doing stuff on their own, doing stuff for themselves. You know, when I do a lot of the parent talks, I will ask, and I know the answer to the question, Mom and Dad at this age, how many of you are still doing your kids' laundry? And everyone cracks up, 9/10. So the parents are, and you'll see the elbows from, see, honey, see. And so, listen, guilty as charged. I remember doing a laundry when I would travel on the road with the kids. Oh, he's tired. I got you, babe. Come on. Really? Well, some days, yeah, I get it, but other days, no. And certainly when they're home, they can do it on their own. What is that going to teach them? It's going to teach them a lot of good skill sets, independence, an appreciation for what they have, because there's so many kids, unfortunately, today where the conversation as they get older is, you don't appreciate what you have, son. You don't appreciate what we've given you.
Mario, you've heard this 100 times. Bruce Billings, go ahead and take your mic off mute. You go watch a player who's a good player, above average player at high A or double A. What are the traits you see around the clubhouse and around the dugout that makes you think this guy's got a clue?
Well, in terms of performance, it's consistency, but performance and character usually play hand in hand. If someone's a consistently good person, someone who consistently makes good choices, it's going to translate to how they play. They're going to consistently eat well. They're going to consistently sleep well. They're going to consistently work out. They're going to consistently practice. And they all play together. And that's I try to tell guys, practice doing things right today so that it becomes a habit, and then it just permeates through everything that they do.
See, Mario could write a book about that, and I keep trying to get him to do that. So, Mario, go ahead. Same thing.
I love that. Yeah. Listen, Ken used to talk about the power of the routine. And Bruce this perfect segue to that. What are routines? They're habits. How do you create your own success? You practice over and over again, but then you have a deliberate practice, a deliberate intention and focus so that you're improving on those habits and never assuming it's only a certain way. Because one of the things that I wish that would have happened as a result of this, this COVID issue, is that people start understanding, let's start using some creativity. That old muscle that somehow we lost and we've gotten rid of. But let's start utilizing our creativity so we can start using drills in a fun way, in a creative way.
Brian Billings, when you go watch it, let's say Joe and I, we're managing against each other, and you go stand next to our dugout, and we've got a bunch of high school sophomores and juniors. What are you listening for in the dugout or observing as the guys get in and out of the dugout that impresses you, that would be instructive for the players and parents who are on this call?
We look for tempo, we look for pace of play, we look for kids that are bouncing around and playing with a little bit of joy and having a good time. We don't really, we flip side of that is we tend to avoid kids that are lazy, that pout, that throw their glove, throw their bat, talk back to their coach, don't have eye contact with their coach when their coach is talking to them. So, we definitely look for those character traits when we're out scouting. Absolutely.
Now, Tyler Freeman, the first thing Coach Billings just said, tempo. You remember the first time you played for a CBA team and they told you to throw the ball around in a hurry and get it back to the pitcher and got mad at you when you did not? Do you remember that?
Happened almost every time. I mean, when I first joined CBA, that was one of the biggest things, was that and running hard to second base even on a pop-up. And that was all new to me. And to this day, I mean, I get the ball around the infield like that. I pretty much run to second on routine pop-ups. I mean, it's taught me a lot.
Mario, I'm gonna lead you right into something I know is in your wheelhouse. If a guy's having a rotten day and there are bad things, how do they fake it? What do they do to make sure they continue to bad habits even when they're not at their best? How do they do that, Mario?
Well, if we're talking about just bringing the right attitude, let's appreciate what the hell you get a chance to do. Hello? You get a chance to play a game.
Absolutely.
I mean, seriously. And as I told my kids today, it's like, listen, you got drafted in this round. You got drafted this round. You're getting paid to play a game that you've been loving and enjoying since you were 5. You're going to bitch why? At what? I mean, let's perspective. We have to keep things in perspective. And this being a game of failure, you're going to struggle. You're supposed to struggle. And our job as coaches and parents, again, is to help guide that transition, to help teach you how to recover. That's what we call resilience, grit. The sooner you learn that lesson, the more you immerse yourself in trying to master that, the more successful you're going to be in anything you do.
Okay, let's bring that back to our 2-strike hitting, because we got about 15 minutes left. But so Mario, a guy strikes out first at bat. What do we want to see that guy do on the way back to the dugout, and then when he gets into the on-deck circle next time?
Oh, well, the last thing I want to do is see how far you can throw your helmet. Okay, or how quickly you can snap the lumber over your leg like a Puig. Okay, yeah, no, I'm going to give you, if you're still a little bit of a mental midget, I'm going to give you no more than 7 seconds to have your little pity party. But by the time you get to the dugout, by the time you put your hat in the hat rack, by the time you put your bat in the bat rack, I need for you to be now a great cheerleader for your teammate. That's the transition you have to have. And you don't fake it. It's got to be sincere. But if you need to learn it, then fine, fake it. But be loud, because that's how quickly you learn how to let go of your mistake, to recover and then be present, because that's what the game is about. Every 20 to 30 seconds, there's a pitch. You better be present for the next pitch. Otherwise, you're checked out. And now you're a liability.
Can I think back on that?
Kids who are good, who are going to be engaged.
Going back to that, you strike out and stuff. I mean, going to college coaches, I bet if someone strikes out, that obviously it's a strikeout, it happens, part of the game. But I bet the college coaches would be more in awe if they see that guy go to their on-deck batter and say, hey, look, this is what he's got. This is what I saw, instead of pouting, instead of dragging their bat to the dugout or something.
Yes. So in a lot of the programs that I've had the privilege of observing or working with, that's mandatory.
Right.
Because what are you getting after a strikeout? If your mind's in the right place, you're getting information. And why are you hoarding the information? You need to share that information, not just with your teammates, but now after the 7 seconds and you go sit down, I want you to sit by yourself a little bit and process, all right, what happened? Why did I miss that by so much? Was I guessing? Did I not have a plan? There's always some teachable moment there. There's some educational component that you need to be focused, not worried about, but focused on. There's a huge difference between the two words, worry and focus.
So let's take that. And Bruce, go ahead and unmute again. And then Brian, I'm going to ask you the same. Bruce, what does it mean to have the good guy, not the bad guy, in a pro clubhouse and in a dugout on a regular basis? What does that mean to a manager, a coach, to be able to have that guy all season?
It's winning, more perform. Like, it's gonna uplift the teammates. It's gonna. I mean, the coaching staff. We're there to help the players, but as a player, you're helping the guys next to you in the locker room, and then they're helping the guys next to them in the locker room. It brings that whole team together, and
Yes.
it brings down the stress level too. As the year goes on, I mean, professional, you have to clock in every day. There's, our off days or even traveling days. Like, you're not resting. So if you're that bad teammate that's just all about yourself and all about your stats, that's going to also permeate through the dugout or the clubhouse, and that's going to hurt you guys in the long run. So it's just pick who you're going to be, and then see how that reflects on everyone else.
See, Brian, for you, it's a little different because you got to put up with that guy in a classroom. You got him weightlifting. There are different things that you're dealing with for 3 or 4 or 5 years that the pro guys aren't dealing with. Pick up on that and talk about that, please.
Actually, for me, I think it's the same answer. I think, you try to create a culture where, there's a certain amount of safety where a kid can strike out and not feel like his teammates and his coaches are judging him and oh my God, he struck out again, that sort of thing, so we're really trying to be there as a support system for our players and have empathy, because baseball's really hard, and there's going to be strikeouts, there's going to be failure, there's going to be errors. And I think as coaches and as players, we need to take it upon ourselves to help them work through those moments. So, I actually had a Zoom call with my team the other day, and I highlighted a few of our players that do just that. What you were talking about after what Tyler was talking about after they strike out or after they have a bad at bat, rather than, go back to the dugout, they're stopping and talking to 3 or 4 people along the way. They're talking to the guy who's going to be up. They're talking about the guy who's on deck, and then they're talking to the guy in the hole, and then they get, back to the dugout. So I think I totally agree with Tyler on that, and Bruce as well. So.
Well, guys, let's do this. We're almost the top of the hour. Let's grab one question real quick. If you're a ball player out there, and Joe helped me with this, let's have one parent and one ball player. One parent and one ball player. Fire away a question. We got Mario, we got Bloomer, we've got Billings ×2, and we've got Tyler. So if we can have one parent ask a question, fire away. For a parent first, please.
Don't be shy.
Well, of course, these are CBA parents. They're all well behaved. They have no questions.
They're
They're
not.
staying to the side.
I have a question. If
I'm
it's
not.
awkward silence, I have a question here.
Yeah.
So my question is more on the other side of the mental skills of, what are your thoughts on going into a 2-strike count? What are some mental skills that you would recommend, for a hitter to take? Is it all about routine and presence? Is that kind of the mental skills aspect for you, Mario?
All I can draw upon is what I've had the privilege of watching and observing with people who are great 2-strike hitters. They had a confidence about themselves. There was never a panic. They had a swagger about them that stayed with them from pitch to pitch, regardless of the count. In one person that I can remember who's actually played down in Southern California, I think his approach is probably the best I've ever seen. At 0-2, he knew what the pitcher was going to do for probably the next 2 pitches, which is to try and make him look stupid. So he rarely swung at the 3rd pitch. There's rarely as a pitcher can throw you 3 straight heaters right in the same spot. So he kind of knew the law of averages. So he'd relax, he'd breathe, and he'd gather information. And then he would watch the body language of the pitcher. Is the pitcher really dialing in? Or it was really fascinating. It wasn't about him. He started playing chess when other people were playing checkers. And so, again, he's simplifying the game. He's simplifying, shortening the strike zone, and he's just trying to be patient. So, Brian, to your point, it's about routines, and you have to practice that. You can't go up there and have an air of desperation. You need to have an air of confidence. And that brings me back to another person who I think is arguably one of the best players, the best hitters I've seen. He always had the belief, I'm one swing away from a hit. I'm one swing away from a hit. This guy is pitching because he wants to face me. That's powerful. You have now that mindset that permeates and trickles down into my hands, my bat. You're pretty much always going to get on base, or you're going to improve your chances. So 0-2, 1-3, 3-0, doesn't matter the count. It's the same. So he has the same approach. He might choke up a little bit more, but he's not squeezing the bat any harder. He's not swallowing his throat. He's still breathing. He's still stepping out of the box. He's still playing with the gloves. If he's doing the poppy spit, I'm probably going to yell at him. But I'm having him try and make sure that he's aware of what he's doing, and maybe even more so in that situation, because now it's more critical for you to observe and have your energy be outside of you and not within you, if that makes sense. But yeah,
That's
0-2.
cool. That's really good stuff.
Joe, we have a question from one of the guys. Can you grab that and read that? Let's see.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, Ivan Farner. On a two-strike approach, is it better to hit it left center or in more towards the foul pole? I don't think it's about hitting the ball to a specific part of the field as much as it's about just expanding the zone and putting the ball in play with two strikes. Obviously, if there's a mistake up in the zone with the pitch, you have the ability to drive it with the swing that you know how to take. But if you're expanding the zone, ball, if you're going +1 off the plate, using some of Brian Billings' terminology here, if you're going one baseball off the plate to two baseballs off the plate, in high school baseball, you're going line to line, batter's box to batter's box a lot of the time for what that strike zone really actually is. You're probably not driving the pitch that's thrown in the other batter's box to the foul pole. You're probably just going to go ahead and do an excuse me swing on those pitches and get the ball in play just so you're not leaving it up to the umpire to make that call. I will say, though, if there's a physical adjustment you can make, Brian, if we're hunting pitches up in the zone earlier in the count, I would say that now you're reacting down a lot more with two strikes. So you're, now you're not just expanding side to side, you're also expanding down. If you're working high to low as far as what you're looking to swing at. So now you're responding down a whole lot more than what you would have done with less than two strikes. So.
Up early was that he uses the middle part of the field with two strikes. He likes the middle part or right field. At the level that I coach, most of the time, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be away with two strikes. So that mentality with a right-handed hitter and a right-handed pitcher is really, really good. And that's kind of what I teach my guys is, hey, use the middle of the field, use the middle, get up on the plate a little bit and go with it. That's what I preach. But Tyler nailed it. I mean, that's the mindset I want my player to think like, I'm going to battle, I'm going middle, or use the right side of the field with two strikes.
And a well-executed fastball in is very hard to defend.
It is.
Especially as guys start to throw harder. If there's a pitcher that's executing in, you're probably not going to have a great day at the plate.
And we don't see that very much in my league and in the league that we play in. We really just don't see that very much. The guys that do, the guys that can command the ball in, they're very effective.
And I do want to say earlier, Tyler said something about, going back and saying, giving some feedback to the guy on deck and the guys in the dugout, and Mario touched on it too. A lot of times though, when you get beat, you don't necessarily have to change anything about what your approach was. Again, if a pitcher's executing well, that's just the way it is sometimes. Tip your cap. I saw a couple of you guys do that. Tip your cap, walk back to the dugout, and just basically hope that they're not going to execute like that the next time through the order. And that's just sometimes all you can do, to stay with what you got. Sometimes you don't need to make the adjustments you think you need to make. Like we talked about earlier, Phil, when I was still playing, that a lot of times my first at bat, if I was leading off, was an at bat that I just kind of gave to the team, so if I could see a ton of pitches the first at bat of the game, great. If they leave a cookie up, very, very seldom would I ambush first pitch of the game. I'd say out of 100 games, I'd probably ambush maybe twice. Ambush means you're swinging at the first pitch of the game or the first pitch of the at bat for the guys that don't know. But more often than not, I tried to see at least 4 pitches in that bat, work my way to a 2-2 count, and then anything after that's kind of a bonus. But if I can get to a 3-2 count, and then I'm putting myself back into a fastball count a lot of the time with 3-2. But if I find myself striking out and walking back to the dugout and not getting on base, I know that I executed my at bat to what I wanted to do with it, and now I can take that information like Mario spoke about earlier, and I could be better for the next time. So a lot of times you don't even need to make an adjustment. A lot of times just be who you were that first at bat, and then let's hope the pitcher doesn't execute his pitches as well the next time through.
I got so many things I want to add, but I'm not going to.
Well, we'll do that next time, Mario. We're going to keep you till next week. But guys, this is the top of the hour. We want to respect your time. We want to thank all the players. We had just shy of 40 participants. And Mario, thank you. Bruce, Brian.
I would like
Tyler,
to do more two-strike stuff next week, though. I know Bill's had some videos he wanted to show us. And I don't know, Bill, you want to do 2 strikes, continue next week, and expand on that with some of the presentational stuff that you have?
Sure. Yeah. It's related. It's loosely related to 2-strike hitting, but it's important. It's basically about mobility and being able to adjust off the high fastball to the low pitch, and just what you have to have some really good thoracic mobility and hip mobility to be able to have that sort of adjustability with 2 strikes. So it was more on the lines of biomechanics, but to really get into it, it's going to require another probably 10, 15 minutes. So we can get into it another day.
Next week. Next week.
2-strike hitting part 2.
Awesome.
All right, buddy.
I will not be on next week.
Jeez.
I'm going to be doing a ropes course, so with my family.
That's okay.
Some team building stuff with the fam.
All right, we'll do something else next week and go to 2-strike hitting part 2 in 2 weeks.
Perfect.
That work? All right. Carlos says thumbs down. All right, everybody. Thanks for being on. We will be doing this weekly. If we're not on for some reason, in the future, just look for us the week after. All right. But we're getting back to baseball. We're getting back to baseball in the field, so things are starting to happen, at least in Arizona. And I know we have teams heading over there. We're going to try to be as consistent with this as possible. I think we get a lot of good information out of it. We got a lot of good feedback from the players, but also very good content from the panelists and the guys that are on here contributing. So appreciate all your guys' time. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Joe, thanks, Phil.
Thank
See you
you.
guys. Thanks, guys.
Mario.
Love you, Joe.
Tyler.
Love you, Joe.
See you guys.
Bye.
Oh.
Tyler. What's up, Tim?
What's up, dude? What's going on, Cody?
That's my guy. How are you?
Meeting now.
Are you driving right now or what, man? You got the charger?
Kyle is.
Oh, okay. Your car or his car?
His car.
You haven't crashed your car yet, have you?
No, I have.
Okay,
All
good.
right.
But he lost in a race to a Ford Edge.